So ngayon magkakaroon tayo ng discussion. Ang topic natin for today ay completing the cycle for a merchandising business. Ngayon, dito naman tayo sa need for a physical count. So ano nga ba muna yung physical count? Physical count is a structured approach to counting a company's stocks where staff uses a predetermined method to count the goods. And ito naman yung need for a physical count. With no perpetual record of the cost of sales during the period, the only way to obtain the cost of the ending inventory is to make a physical count. And ending inventory amount is needed in the computation of the cost of sales. To recapitulate, ending inventory is deducted from goods available for sale to obtain cost of sales. Next is steps involved in the physical count. First, all merchandise owned by the entity is counted. Second, the quantity counted is multiplied by the cost per unit for each inventory item. Number 3, the cost of various items are added to determine the total cost of inventory. The resulting total cost of inventory is the ending inventory. The amount will appear as a deduction in the cost of sales section of the income statement and as a current asset in the balance sheet. And physical count is made at or near the balance sheet date. And reliable physical count is a very significant because the ending inventory amount affects both the income statement and the balance sheet. And lastly, as conclusion, an error in valuing ending inventory will translate into one inaccurate balance sheet and two incorrect income statement. And next is merchandise inventory at the end of the period. At the end of the period, entries are made to reflect in the inventory account ending balance. So there are two steps in order to achieve the objectives. The first one is to remove the beginning balance from the merchandise inventory account and to transfer it to income summary. The second one is to enter the ending balance in the merchandise inventory account and to establish it in the income summary. So in this example, merchandise inventory was 528,000 at the beginning of the year and 483,000 at the end of the year. So kung makikita nyo, the effect A remove the 528,000 from the merchandise inventory account and transferred it to income summary. Bale, ikinload siya sa income summary. So sa income summary, the 528,000 is in effect added to net cost purchases because tulad nga ng mga expenses, the balance of the purchases account is debited to income summary by a closing entry. And the effect B established the ending balance of merchandise inventory of 483,000 and entered it as a credit in the income summary account. Kinlose din siya sa income summary. A credit entry in income summary has the effect of deducting the ending inventory from goods available for sale because the purchases and beginning inventory are entered on the debit side. And to summarize, yung beginning merchandise inventory at yung purchases ay dinedebit sa income summary while yung ending merchandise inventory naman ay kinikredit sa income summary. And next is yung adjusting entry method naman. So just like what I have mentioned earlier, there are two steps in order to achieve the objective of setting up the merchandise inventory at the end of the period. And the adjusting entries necessary in merchandise inventory account, let us first recall that merchandise inventory is an example of asset account. And as an asset account, normal balance is debit. So therefore, this beginning balance, 528,000, is actually a debit balance. So how are you going to make the necessary adjusting entry? In removing the beginning balance, we just have to transfer it to the income summary account. And since the beginning balance is a debit account, In order to remove it, what you have to do is to simply credit the merchandise inventory. The merchandise inventory must be credited to the amount of 528,000, and it will be removed and entered and transferred to income summary. Therefore, the account title to be used as a debit balance or debit account is income summary for amount of 528,000. So this is the entry to record the removal of the beginning balance. And the second entry is to establish to enter the ending balance of 483,000. You have to simply debit merchandise inventory and credit income summary. The next is closing entry method. Dito naman sa closing entry method, dito i-close natin yung mga temporary accounts pati beginning at ending balance. I-close natin sila sa income summary. Yung mga debit, i-credit natin. And yung mga credit, i-debit natin para mag-zero. Kasi hindi mo na yan i-carry sa next period. And yun lang. Ang next na magdi-discuss ay si ate nyo, Andrea.
So next is preparing the worksheet. The worksheet of a merchandising business is the same as that of a service business, except that it has to deal with the new accounts related to merchandising transactions. This account includes sales, sales returns and allowances, sales discounts, purchases, purchases returns and allowances, purchases discounts, transportation in, merchandise inventory, and transportation out. So in preparing a 12-column worksheet, we first need to identify the parts of a 12-column worksheet. So let us look at the illustration 1. The first two columns are dedicated for the unaltered trial balance of the business. It is where the original trial balance is written. The trial balance which shows the T accounts to create such. The second pair of columns are dedicated for the adjustments that needs to be done. The adjustments are the business activities that are done after the company issued their financial statements. The third part of columns are for the adjusted trial balance. It is where the trial balance with the adjustments are written. The total of this trial balance may differ from the original because of the changes. Next, the fourth and fifth pairs of the columns are the income statement and balance sheet. For the worksheet to be balanced, we need to make some adjustment and additions to the different columns. In the column of income statement, same as the normal without adjustments, but the only addition is the adjusted expenses. Add the expenses that is included in the adjustments and then proceed with the normal way of creating an income statement. On the other hand, the balance sheet columns is where the account titles that are not included in the succeeding columns. So these are where the real accounts are recorded. So next is preparing the financial statements. So per revised pass number 1, an enterprise should present an analysis of expenses using a classification based on either the nature of expenses or their function within the entity, whichever provides information that is reliable and more relevant. So expenses in an income statement are either classified by their nature or by their function. So nature of expense method, ito ay nagpro-provide ng information tungkol sa expenses na nag-a-arise from the main inputs na nakukonsume to accomplish an entity's business activities. For example, yung mga expenses related to materials, mga na-purchase nating raw materials, mga employee benefits, transportation costs, rent expense, wages, depreciation, and other operating expenses. So this method of disclosure of expenses is used in single-step incomes And ito yung usually ginagamit ng mga small businesses because of its simplicity and it has no allocation of expenses to functional classification. It contains fewer subtotals. So sale less expenses lang talaga ang format niya. Ganun lang siya kasimple. Next is yung function method naman. So tinatawag din itong cost of sale method. Classified yung expenses dito according sa function nila sa part of cost of sales, distribution or selling, administrative at other operating activities. This method allows us to calculate gross profit and operating profit within the income statement, and it is usually used in multi-step format. So mostly, ang gumagamit nito ay yung mga large and medium businesses. Sa merchandising business, yung net sales is nag-a-arise siya sa sale of goods, while yung cost of sales, ito yung cost of inventory ng entity na naibenta. So the first step in multiple step income statement is to calculate gross profit. To compute gross profit, the cost of merchandise sold is subtracted from the sales. Revenues from the sale of goods to consumers are sales and are recorded in the sales account. The cost associated with the goods sold is recorded in an expense account titled Cost of Merchandise Sold. Gross profit shows how much profit was made purely on the merchandise that was sold. The next step in a multiple-step income statement is operating income. Gross profit is reduced. Gross profit is reduced by operating expenses to arrive at operating income, which is the income earned from normal business operations. To successfully buy and sell merchandise, most merchandising businesses have a support staff and other expenses that are necessary to make their business run. Examples including marketing, sales staff, advertising, purchasing agents, and more. The final step in a multiple-step income statement is net income. Operating income is adjusted by other revenues or expenses that do not directly relate to the business day-to-day operations. These costs are called non-operating expenses. Example include interest expense or income, taxes, lawsuits, or gains and losses from the sale of investment. So itong mga to, matatakal nyo yan sa higher accounting. Merchandising businesses, manufacturers, and service businesses all prepare an income statement and balance sheet, and all are very similar. And merchandising business, however, has a few slight differences in its income statement and balance sheet. So sa mga next illustrations natin, ipapakita natin kung paano nag-connect yung four financial statements. So dito sa statement of changes in equity, makikita natin yung profit na na-compute natin from income statement. So we will add the profit to the beginning capital and less the withdrawals to get the ending capital. Next illustration. So ganyan i-present yung statement of changes in equity. Next is the balance sheet. The balance sheet of the merchandising business expands its asset section to include merchandise inventory and sometimes estimated returns inventory. Merchandise inventory is the merchandise purchased to be sold to customers and is categorized as current asset. Makikita din natin dito yung ending capital na na-compute natin sa illustration 3 or sa may equity section. So, ganyan natin i-represent ang balance sheet. So, next is the adjusting and closing entries. At this point in the accounting cycle, we have prepared the financial statements. Now we do the last part, the closing entries. The closing entries will be a review as the process for closing does not change for a merchandising company. Do you remember why we do closing entries? They are journal entry version of the statement of retained earnings to ensure the balance we report on the statement of retained earnings in the balance sheet matches the ending balance of retained earnings in our general ledger. Closing entries also set the balances of all temporary accounts like revenue, expenses, and dividends to zero for the next period. Revenue accounts typically have normal credit balances, but sales discounts and sales returns and allowances are contra assets because they are revenue accounts but have normal debit balances. Expenses have normal debit balances. The basic steps in closing process are modified slightly. So, closing the revenue accounts with credit balances, transferring the credit balances. So, transferring the credit balances in the revenue accounts to a clearing account called income statement, is income summary, sorry. And next, closing the expenses accounts and contra revenue accounts. So here, we're transferring the debit balances in the expense account and contra revenue accounts to a clearing account called income summary. Next, next is closing the income summary by capital. And lastly, closing the withdrawal account by transferring the withdrawal account to the capital account. Next, post-closing trial balance. The post-closing trial balance is taken to ensure the balance between remaining debit and credit accounts. The post-closing trial balance does not include the closed merchandising accounts of cost of goods sold and supplies consumed, and consists only of a real accounts of asset, liabilities, and equity. Merchandising accounts of inventory and other supplies are asset accounts and will appear in the post-closing trial balance, provided that there is still a balance on those accounts. Accounts in the post-closing trial balance are the basis for compiling the balance sheet. And that will be the end.
And ngayon dito naman tayo sa practice theories. So, number 1, it is a type of business that involve buying and selling of goods. So, ang sagot dyan ay yung merchandising business. Kasi yung sa service business naman, pang mga commercial purposes yung mga ganyan, di ba? Mga pang performance tax. Tapos yung sa manufacturing naman yung mga nagma-manufacturing ng mga goods. And yun. Yun sa number 2 naman, when preparing a worksheet for a merchandising company, which of the following account should not be reported in the income statement column? So, ang sagot naman dyan ay yung dividends. Di ba wala namang dividends sa income statement? And yun. And sa number 3, which of the following is shown for both merchandising and service companies? And ang sagot dyan is yung operating expenses. Kaya operating expenses ang sagot dyan kasi yun lang naman ang meron dun sa dalawa. Walang cost of goods sold sa service, di ba? Kasi service yun. Service revenue agad or service income. Wala ring sales return. Imagine niyo yung income statement nilang dalawa, parehong may operating expense na dinededuct para mag-arrive sa net income. And yun, number 4 na.
So next, number 4, the information for closing entries can be found on balance sheet columns of the worksheet. True or false? So ang magiging sagot dyan is, next, ano? Ayan, false. False kasi yung mga account sa closing entry sa income statement natin makikita. Kasi ang kino-close lang naman natin na mga account is yung mga temporary, di ba? So yun, next. After closing the ledger, after closing the ledger, only permanent accounts have balances. So ang sagot dyan is true. True kasi gaya nga ng sinabi ko kanina, yung mga temporary account lang yung mga kino-close natin. Next. The result after adding the net purchases to the merchandise inventory beginning is, ang sagot dyan is total goods available for sale. So, tatandaan lang natin dito lagi yung formula dun sa may function of expense method. Para makuha natin yung goods available for sale, di ba? I-add natin yung merchandise inventory sa net purchases. Next.
And dito naman sa practice problem naman tayo. Number 1, if beginning inventory is 60,000, cost of goods purchases is 380,000, and ending inventory is 50,000, cost of goods sold is, ang sagot dyan ay yung D, 390,000. Kung mapapansin nyo, nandito na yung yung kung paano kinumpute. Yung beginning inventory plus net purchases, and less natin yung ending inventory. Kaya nakuha natin yung 390,000. And number 2, Songbird Company has sales of 150,000 and cost of goods available for sale of 135,000. If the gross profit rate is 30%, the estimated cost of the ending inventory under the gross profit method is 30,000. So, nandito na rin yung computation. Yung 150,000, ililist natin yung 30%. Kaya makukuha natin yung 105 na na yung cost of goods sold. And yung 135, ilist natin yung 105, kaya nakuha natin yung 30,000. Bali, ang ginawa kung may 105,000 ang cost of goods sold mo, tapos may goods available for sale ka na 135,000, ibig sabihin ang tira sa inventory mo is 30,000. Yun.
Ayun ba yung sinend ko sa'yo?
Oo, best yan.
Ay, sorry. So, number 3. At the beginning of the year, ACME had an inventory of 600,000. During the year, the company purchased goods costing 2,250,000. Ay, million pala. If ACME reported ending inventory of 750,000 and sales of 3 million, what is their cost of goods sold? So, magiging answer dyan is letter D, 2,100,000. Bakit? Kasi hindi natin papansinin yung sales. Yung sales dyan. Ang i-compute lang natin is yung beginning inventory, purchases, plus yung ending. So, beginning inventory 600,000, i-add natin doon yung purchases na 2,250,000. So, magkakaroon tayo ng goods available for sale na 2,850,000. Tapos, ililess natin yung ending inventory na 750,000 and makakakuha tayo ng 2,100,000 na cost of goods sold. So next, number 4. If sales and revenues are 400,000, cost of goods sold is 310,000 and operating expenses are 60,000, what is the gross profit? Basta yung mga sinusolve lang natin dito, tandaan lang natin yung formula sa function of expense method. So, ang sagot dyan is letter A, 90,000. Kasi, wait lang. Ililas lang natin yung expenses, yung cost of goods sold sa revenues para mag-come up tayo sa gross profit. Hindi natin papakialaman yung operating expenses kasi sa after gross profit pa yun. Next, number last. So, Sage Corporation had reported the following amounts on December 31, 2012. Sales revenue 184,000, ending inventory 11,600, beginning inventory 7,200, purchases 60,400, purchase discount 3,000, purchase returns and allowances 1,100, transportation in 600, transportation out 900. So calculate the cost of goods available for sale. So ang magiging answer natin dyan is letter B. B, bakit? Yung next. Dyan natin makikita kung paano siya kinumpute. I-apply lang natin yung formula kanina. So, yung sales 184,000. So, i-compute muna natin yung doon lang muna tayo sa my cost of goods sold. So, beginning inventory is 7,200. Tapos, purchases, ililess muna natin yung purchases, discount, and returns and allowances. So, meron tayong net purchases na 56,300. And i-add natin yung transportation in. Hindi natin papakailaman yung transportation out kasi part siya ng operating expenses. So, meron tayong net cost of purchases na 56,900. So, i-add natin yon sa beginning inventory para makuha yung goods available for sale. Yan na.
Okay, so, Rika, okay ka pa dyan? Kaya pa? Iisa ka lang eh. Try pa tayong magsagot ng ibang... Bakit? Hindi daw siya okay. Mag-isa niya. Nagtry pa tayong magsagot ng iba pang problem. Pero this time naman, try mo na magsagot din. Okay ba? Sagot ka dito. Kahit sa chat lang. Hindi, okay lang. Okay lang. Try lang naman natin. Kumahiya. Yan. Okay, so try mo magsagot. I-chat mo na lang. So, inventory is recorded in the statement of financial position of an entity. What kind of inventory is recorded in the statement of financial position? A, opening inventory. B, closing inventory. C, average of the opening and closing inventory. D, higher of the opening and closing inventory. Okay, ano sagot dyan? Chat mo na lang. Letter B. Check natin. Tama. So letter B. Tama yung sagot. Bakit? Letter B. Kasi ang nire-record na natin sa financial position is yung ending amount or ending balance na ng inventory. Hindi tayo mag-record dun ng ng beginning. Kaya hindi na itong opening inventory. Tsaka hindi rin itong average or higher ng opening and closing inventory. Okay, next naman. Arrange the following current assets according to their liquidity, starting from the most liquid one. Okay, so anong magiging sagot mo dyan? Letter A, cash, bank, inventory, accounts receivable. B, accounts receivable, inventory, bank, cash. C, bank, cash, accounts receivable, and inventory. Letter D, cash, bank, accounts receivable, and inventory. Okay, anong sagot dyan? Letter A daw. Check natin. Letter D. D ang tamang sagot. Kung natatanda mo yung mga arrangement lagi sa di ba mas naunang accounts receivable kaysa sa inventory. Kaya letter D ang sagot dyan. Hindi mauna ang inventory kaysa accounts receivable. Mas liquid ang accounts receivable kaysa inventory. Okay. Next naman, ayan, problem. John Kahilig Traders started operating in 2018. For the year ended 2018, the sales, purchases, and closing inventory are 500,000, 200,000, and 10,000 respectively. So what is the amount of cost of goods sold for the year ended 2018? Okay. Letter A, 190,000 pesos. B, 200,000 pesos. C, 790 pesos. D, 800,000 pesos. Okay, so what's your answer? Okay, may sagot na siya. Pero ang tamang sagot dyan is letter A. Bakit letter A? Kung tatandaan mo yung formula ng cost of goods sold, ganito yan. Meron tayong beginning inventory plus kaya add purchases equals total goods available for sale. Or tigas. And then, ililess natin yung ending. Oo nga pala. Tsaka naalala niya. So, kaya, anong sagot mo? Di ba letter A din? 190. Ito yung cost. Kaya sabihin natin COGS dyan yan. Tingnan natin kung meron. Meron ba tayong beginning inventory? Wala namang given. So, kaya, nagpas na yan. Wala tayo dyan. Gawin natin kahit ganyan lang. Yan. So, ito naman, meron tayong purchases na 200,000. Lagay natin yan. And then, meron ba tayong magkano ang bigas natin? Siyempre, babalang natin to. So, kaya 200,000. And then, ilas nyo na yung ending inventory na 10,000. So, yun lang yung computation nito dito. So, kaya equals 190,000 pesos. Ayun, sagot. So, next naman. Yan. Siya ulit. Si John Kahilig. Same information. Pero ang tanong is gross profit. So, what's the answer? Letter A, 200,000. B, 300,000. C, 310,000. Or D, 490,000. Kinukuha natin dito is gross profit. So, anong formula ng gross profit? Dali lang, di ba? Nakuha na natin yung cost of sales kanina. Sige, tingnan natin. Tingnan natin kung tamang sagot. Yun, tama. 310. So, madali lang, di ba? Computation naman yan is sales less cost of sales. Ang nakuha natin kanina is 190 na cost of sales or cost of goods sold. Tapos meron natin given na sales na 500,000, ipag-less nyo lang yun. So kaya 500,000 minus 190,000 is equal to 310,000 pesos. Okay, so next naman. Oh, ito. An entity has the following accounting information for the year. Yan yung information. Ang tanong naman is, what is the amount of net sales of the entity? Letter A, 475,000. B, 488,000. C, 472,000. Or D, 459,000. Ayan, medyo Pero, ito lang naman ang tinatanong yung net sales. So, kaya yun lang yung mga hanapin mo dyan. Hanapin mo lang yung mga importante. Nandyan yung mga tinatanong lang sa net sales. Okay, so what's your answer? Ayun, tingnan natin kung tama yung sagot mo. Letter A, tama. So, hanapin mo lang dito yung nilalaman nitong net sales. Ano ba yung mga laman niya? Meron tayong sales sa computation ng net sales. Ano pa? Sales return. Meron pa ba? Meron pa bang discount dyan? Discount. Wala na. So, ayan, yung dalawa lang. Itong 600,000 nilas niyo sa 125,000 for sales return para makuha yung 475,000 pesos. Okay, next naman. Same information pero ang tinatanong naman ngayon dito is net purchases. Yan. So, ano magiging sagot dyan? Letter A, 98,000. B, 48,000. C, 47,000. Or D, 97,000. Yan. Sige, solve. Nakamute pala ako. Sorry. So, tama yung sagot ni Rika. Letter C. Hindi ko napansin, nakamute pala ako. Bali, ulitin ko yung sinabi ko kanina. Kapag net purchases, ang hanapin lang natin itong dalawa. Yan lang ang kabilang dyan. O kung meron pang discount, kasama din yun. Net purchases yun. Pero kapag ang tanong, net cost of purchases, ang magiging sagot dyan is 96,000. Paano na kung 96,000? I-add natin tong transportation in. Kasama yan. Kasi ang tinatanong is net cost of purchases. Pero dahil net purchases lang, itong dalawa lang. Yung purchases and purchases returns. Kaya tama itong 47,000. Okay, next naman. O yan. Same information pero closing inventory ang hinahanap ngayon. Anong magiging sagot natin dito? Letter A, 85,000. B, 88,000. C, 36,000. Or D, 33,000. Okay, solve. Okay, meron bang sagot? Sige. Ito mag-isa mo naman. Take your time lang. Maganda sana pag tatlo para unahin kayo. Pero isa mo kaya take your time. Pero wag mo masyadong wag mong iabot sa 11:30. Okay, so ito yan. So ang tamang sagot dyan is C, 36,000. Paano nakuha to? Sige, lagay natin yung solution dito. Ayan. So meron tayong sales tapos gross profit. Paano natin kukunin yung ending inventory o yung closing inventory? kunin muna natin kung magkano yung cost of sales. Magkano ba yung cost of sales? Yan, sales minus gross profit. Kasi di ba, para makuha natin yung cost of sales, para makuha natin yung gross profit, mina-minus natin yung cost of sales. Kaya ibaliktad natin ngayon ganyan para makuha yung COGS. Yan. So, ilan ang amount dyan? Magiging amount dyan is 600,000 minus 317,000 equals 283,000. Ayan, meron na tayong COGS. Ayan, para natin kukunin yung yung ending inventory. Kunin mo natin yung, meron na tayong net purchases. So kaya, yan na lang lagay natin, net purchases. Kanina nakuha natin kanina, 47,000. Okay. Tapos, add pa dito yung transportation in. Para makuha yung sinasabi natin kanina na net cost of purchases. And then, pag nakuha na natin to, lagay lang muna natin dito yung mga amount nila. So net purchases, magkano yung kanina? 47,000. Transportation in, magkano? 49,000. Then, magkano ang amount nito? Lagay natin dito. Giging 47 plus 96. 49 pala. 96 yan. Kuha natin yung net cost of purchases. Punta naman tayo ng dito. Meron tayong opening inventory. So kaya, i-add na lang natin yan. Ito dapat yung nasa taas. Lagay natin dito sa taas to. Opening inventory. Yan dito. Magkano yun? Meron tayong 26,000. Yan. So magkano yung tigas natin? 26 plus 96 is equal to 122. Kailangan kung may error dito. Hindi ata ako napalitan. Ito yung ending inventory. Pero anong sagot mo dito, Rika? Anong sagot mo kung wala dito? Nagkamali at ako hindi ko napalitan. Meron ka bang sagot dito na nakuha, Rika? 122K. Sige, teka. Di niya sinulog sa gross profit. Meron tayong COGS na 283. Then meron tayong mali ito. Teka, sorry. Itong sales, net sales to. Sorry. Should be net sales. Kalimutan ko. Net sales. So this should be 475,000. 475,000. 475 minus 317. Yun, tignan nyo, nalilito din ang kuya nyo. So, okay, dapat nalilito din dito. Balikan nyo pag may mga mali. So, ayan. 158. So, ang amount dito ng COGS is 158, hindi 283. Bali ito. 158. Yan. So, magkano ang ano natin? Magkano ang inventory natin, ending inventory? Paano gagawin natin dyan? Pagle-less na lang natin ito dulo. So, 36,000 tama. Yun, doon na natin nakuha yung tamang sagot. 36,000. Yan yung tamang sagot. Yan. Ito yung solution. So, kaya, next naman, ayan. So, try mo nga itong sagutan. What is the amount of profit? Profit ngayon, profit for the year. So, kaya wala na tayo sa gross profit, nandun na tayo sa profit for the year. Pinaka-dulo. Magkano magiging amount natin dito? Letter A, 270,000. B, 296,000. C, 308,000. Or D, 326,000. Tingnan natin anong sagot. Okay na? May answer na ba? O, wala pa rin. Dali lang to. Dito na tayo kaagad. Hanapin lang natin kung ano yung mga kailangan natin dito sa mga to. Sige, wait. Sige lang. Okay, sige, tanungin ko na lang kung paano mo nakuha yung letter A. Mag-unmute ka na lang, Rika. Ano yung mga ginamit mo para makuha yung 270,000?
Ano po, yung ano po, transportation out, salaries, revenues, tas expenses, general expenses. Minus ko po sa 300 sa gross profit.
So itong 5 ang ginamit mo.
Opo.
Bale, anong ginawa mo? 317,000 binawas mo itong 4.
Opo.
So ang naging sagot mo is 270. Check natin. 317 minus 12. 317 minus 12 minus 16 minus 13 minus 6. 270 ang lalabas, no? Pero dapat hindi ka magkamali dito. Kasi tignan mo. Di ba ito expenses tong transportation out? Napag-aralan nyo na ba yung sa ano? Yung selling expense, ganun, administrative expense, other expenses? O napag-aralan nyo na yun, no? Kasi itong transportation out sa selling expense to, itong salaries, depende yan kung sinabing kung sa selling siya or sa administrative, pwede yan maghati doon. Pati, tapos itong general expense doon na yung sa ano, I think sa administrative. Ngayon, nakikita mo ito. Babawas ba yan? Babawas ba yan sa gross profit?
Add po.
Yun, so kaya dito ka nagkamali. Dito siya nagkamali. Kaya ang mangyayari dapat is gross profit less itong mga expenses and then i-add mo na lang tong other revenue. So ilan magiging sagot mo?
Letter B po.
Yun, letter B. So, ang tamang sagot dyan is 296,000. Lagay na lang natin dito yung sagot para makita rin. Yan. So, dito. 317,000 less yung 12,000 na transportation out less yung salaries na 12 na 16,000 then less or add na lang muna. And add yung other revenues na magkano yun? 13,000. And then less yung general expenses na 6,000. So ang lalabas dyan is 296,000. Yan yung sagot. So, yun lang. Yun lang para sa ano? Sa araw na to. Sana naintindihan mo yung topic ngayon. Hindi lang ikaw, pati yung mga wala ngayon. Sana panoorin nila ito at intindihin yung topic. Kasi next topic natin, mag-proceed na tayo sa parkour. Or ano na, partnership, incorporation. Doon tayo sa first lesson nyo doon. So, Andrea, you may stop the recording.